So is this the influencer election?
Social media, I feel like, is like our new media outlet nowadays.
I think 2024 is going to be the TikTok election.
This is the future of campaigns, but also life in general.
I absolutely believe my content is making it to undecided voters.
So to find out about the influencer effect, I'm here in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Now, of all the swing states, it has the most electoral votes at 19. The state went to Donald Trump in 2016 and Biden in 2020. Both the Harris and Trump campaigns have dedicated a lot of time to this state, and influencers have been a big part of that. Plus, nearly 40% of young Americans say they get their news from TikTok. I spoke to Corey Aversa. He's a local influencer who was one of the more than 200 content creators who was asked to attend the DNC in Chicago.
I wanted you all to feel like you were at the DNC with me, so here was the other creators. I know a lot of younger people under 25 that wrote me and said, we had not registered yet and we've never voted before, and your content made us want to vote for the first time.
Rylan Hollyhand is a content creator who attended the RNC in Milwaukee. As the chair for the Youth Advisory Committee for Donald Trump, he says he brought together more than 100 content creators for the convention.
This is me kind of showing voters what the seating arrangements were, how people walked onto the floor. I'm showing right now the media boxes. It's a lot different vibe than having an older person talk down to high schoolers and college students. Gen Z resonates more with an authenticity type thing than like a good morning, the RNC told me to tell you, like that type of stuff.
Jasmine Duke also told me that authenticity is why her content does well.
Hey y'all, so I am down here.
Her account largely focuses on vegan and lifestyle content, but since the election, she's turned to also talking about reproductive rights.
I brought that little mini mic and it was like, while we wait to do this exam, let's talk about what's at stake. Let's talk about exactly what reproductive health care is. Let's talk about how Kamala Harris is a proponent of it.
Duke also told me that she sees her content as a way to educate her audience as she educates herself.
Really seeing that not everyone was understanding the information. Anytime I'm learning something new, I'm like, oh, let me put y'all on.
And educating the audience is also important to Stephanie Donegan. She's a political strategist who also creates social content.
So I have 43,000 followers. I've made a couple videos that talk specifically about things that Donald Trump has done. I went directly to whitehouse.gov and grabbed the information and then provided the resources. I have received no less than 100 messages in the last 6 months. Those are the people who decided to pause and say, thank you for creating this content. And yes, I've decided to vote red.
Now, both Harris and Trump's teams seem to recognize the impact of influencers on voting habits.
Both campaigns have been really active in this space, and I think it's going to be critical to the success. I mean, it's such a tight race, and so being able to find voters wherever they are is key.
Whereas the Harris campaign is leaning in really hard to online social media, TikTok, Instagram. We have the Trump campaign on the other side, and they're looking more at podcasting as a new form of social influence. Most often, people don't really think about podcasters as social media influencers, except the way they market and distribute their content is largely through social media.
Now, there has been some discussion online about whether influencers are paid for their content. And that's because in the US, disclosures like these on influencer content are only required for commerce. So it's not like a political ad on TV.
And I approve this message.
The content creators we spoke to said they're not getting paid by either campaign. Corey Aversa told us he has done some paid political posts, but he says they were funded by outside groups, not the Harris campaign. And he says some content creators accept invites to be part of the conversation while paying for the experience themselves.
One day I opened up a magical email and it said, would you like to be one of the first creators ever at the DNC? And then I wrote back in like 3 seconds. It was a lot of money to go there. Like the hotel alone was more than any vacation I've ever taken in my whole life.
Other content creators told us they were invited to events by third-party groups where they made content, but they weren't paid to do so. Experts say this lets political campaigns tap into an influencer's audience without having to pay them directly.
You may pay for this exclusive experience for someone to come participate in, but it's up to them whether they create the content.
We reached out to the Harris and Trump campaigns to ask whether they had paid influencers to promote their candidate. We also asked how many influencers have been involved with each campaign. We did not receive a response.